Were you evacuated somewhere?
Yes.
Where?
We lived in Great Yarmouth, and it was my mother's birthday. It was May the 26th May the 26th is 1940. At tea time, there was a radio announcement that all the school children in Yarmouth were to be evacuated, and they were to be evacuated on June the 1st, which was a Sunday. And we were to go to school the next day and get instructions. I had a twin sister, and we were I suppose we were 11 at the time, and we'd just recently, I was at the high school in Great Yarmouth, and I had gone on a scholarship, and my sister, who was lovely, bless her, she would much rather go and watch a wedding at the church next door than she would do her lessons. But she was still, in some aspects, much cleverer than me, and my parents had decided that they would try and send her to a grammar school, and they'd send her, which was then the St Louis Convent High School in Yarmouth. So she went to a different school than I. So on June the 1st, we were out of bed at something like 4 o'clock in the morning, and we had to go to our respective schools by something like 6 o'clock, and we were herded on buses, and we were taken to Vauxhall Station in Yarmouth. Now, my father was chief clerk at Vauxhall Station, so he had access to the platforms, and they'd made arrangement for a taxi to go and pick my mother up so she could actually see us go, and my future sister-in-law took us to school. We were allowed a suitcase, a gas mask, and a pack of food, and that was all we could take. And we had labels tied around our necks, so you can imagine what an 11-year-old thought about having a label tied around her neck. And we were taken to Yarmouth Vauxhall. It was a baking hot day, and we were taken off the train and put on the platform and then herded onto the trains, and they were the old dining car trains with the tables down the middle and the little tiny windows at the top, no windows that you could open. And we were all put on there, and we sat on this train for quite a long time. And my mother found me, and then she said, I must find Nancy, my sister. And she went off and she came back and she said, Nancy's in the front of the train, but nobody will tell us where you're going. They hadn't got a clue. They waved two of us goodbye, and they had no idea where we were going or what time we were going to get there or anything else. And we travelled the whole day until late afternoon to Retford in Nottinghamshire, where we were unloaded. Whilst we were, it was a really hot day. Our headmistress had huge bottles of that 4711 cologne, and she used to she came round every so often and dabbed our hands and faces with it, you know, so that we tried to cool off. There was no way of getting any air because there was only these little tiny windows. And of course, long before we got anywhere, our packed sandwiches had gone. So we were hungry, and we were herded off this train and put onto buses again. And buses went at various angles, and we landed up at some hall. And you sat on the floor until some lady or man or whoever came along and said, I'll have her. And off you went. And I was put with an elderly man and woman whose own family were well grown up. I hadn't really got a clue what to do with an 11-year-old. And I didn't know where my sister was, she didn't know where I was, and we didn't know where each other was until my mother, we were given a card which said, my name is Betty Pettit, I am living at, and you would put this address that you were living at, and it was stamped and you posted it before you left the hole. And she got these cards and she knew we were both in Retford. But I didn't know that Nancy was in Retford and I was in Retford till we both got letters from my mother, which was about a week later, because we did half-day schooling. So, and I was actually a little bit outside Retford, and it was a long old walk, and none of us knew where the rest of Yarmouth children were. And then we were there, I wasn't there, too long because my mother came up to Retford when she could and went to see the billeting officer and got us billeted together, so we got back together again. So, but she still went to her school and I went to mine. But we were only there about 2.5 years, I suppose. And my brother was a Jap prisoner of war. He was with the 4th Battalion, the Royal Norfolks, and they were all captured at Singapore. So my mother, with the bombing of Yarmouth, us evacuated, him missing, was having quite a life of it. So my father got transferred up to Lincoln. So then they had us home, and I finished my schooling in Lincoln, which was, you know, it was a time that virtually I've forgotten about. You know, I remembered being evacuated, but the rest of it I've virtually wiped out. I don't even remember the names of the people I lived with. You know, none of them were remarkable to remember. So it's sort of 3 years of my life that I've switched off about. But nevertheless, it didn't seem to have done me much harm.